chapter 18 of Genesis. The Lord appeared to Abraham near the great trees of Mamre, while he was sitting at the entrance to his tent in the heat of the day. So my guess is it's a hot part of the day, probably what's like 2 in the afternoon for us or something. Verse 2, Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. When he saw them, he hurried from the entrance of his tent to meet them and bowed low to the ground. That may have been their way of greeting people. He said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord," that's small letters, L-O-R-D, so that means my master. So that may be the way of him submitting himself to strangers or to guests in his home. Verse 3, he said, "If I have found favor in your eyes, my Lord, do not pass your servant by." Your servant, me. Obviously, again, he's submitting himself to them. Verse 4, "Let a little water be brought, and then you may all wash your feet and rest under this tree. Let me get you something to eat, so you can be refreshed and then go on your way, now that you have come to your servant." Wow, Abraham certainly is nice to visitors. "Very well," they answered, "do as you say." So Abraham hurried into the tent to Sarah. "Quick," he said, "get 3 seahs, S-E-A-H-S, that must be a form of measurement. Get 3 seahs of fine flour and knead it and bake some bread." He said, "Quick, do it as fast as you can." Verse 7, then he ran to the herd and selected a choice tender calf and gave it to a servant who hurried to prepare it. So we're having bread rushed to be made and meat rushed to be made. Verse 8, he then brought some curds and milk and the calf that had been prepared and set these before them. While they ate, he stood near them under a tree. So while they were resting, all this food was being prepared. We don't know how long they rested, and we don't know how long it took for the food to be prepared. But he was able to deliver this food to them. They ate while he stood nearby. He wasn't hovering over them. They said to him, "Where is your wife Sarah?" they asked him in verse 9. "They're in the tent," he said. Verse 10. Then the Lord, now this is all capital L-O-R-D, so this is Yahweh. Then the Lord said, "I will surely return to you about this time next year, and Sarah your wife will have a son." So he just said that in chapter 18. He promised that by a year that Sarah would have a son. And now he's saying by this time next year, Sarah will have a son. We don't know how much time has passed between the circumcision and now, but I would say probably not much. Now Sarah was listening at the entrance to the tent, which was behind him. Abram and Sarah were already old and well advanced in years, and Sarah was past the age of childbearing. So she wasn't in her cycle anymore. She's already gone through menopause. Verse 12, so Sarah laughed to herself as she thought, "After I am worn out and my master is old, will I now have this pleasure?" So apparently she always wanted a child, but now she knows her time's past, so she laughs to herself. And she thought, "After I am worn out and my master is old," her husband, she submits to her husband, "will I now have this pleasure?" Verse 13, then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Will I really have a child now that I am old?' Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son." I'm stopping here in case you didn't have your ears tuned in completely. Listen here now. Then the Lord said to Abraham, so Yahweh said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, will I really have a child now that I am old?" So the Lord, Sarah said it to herself. She laughed to herself and she said to herself, but the Lord heard it. Heard it. Then the Lord said to Abraham, "Why did Sarah laugh and say, 'Will I really have a child now that I am old?'" Then he goes on and says, "Is anything too hard for the Lord?" Is anything too hard for the Lord? I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son. So when he's saying, is anything too hard for the Lord? He is the Lord. He didn't say, though, is anything too hard for me? I find that really interesting. I will return to you at the appointed time next year, and Sarah will have a son. Sarah was afraid. Well, yeah, she just thought to herself something, and this man just spoke it out loud. Well, this person, the Lord, who was appearing as a man, just said her thoughts out loud. So verse 15, or something she said to herself, maybe she said to herself quietly, but verse 15, Sarah was afraid. So she lied and said, I did not laugh. But he said, yes, you did laugh. Verse 16, when the men got up to leave, they looked down towards Sodom, and Abraham walked along with them to see them on their way. What a great host he is. He's even walking along with them as they begin their journey. Then the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Who is he talking to? Is he talking to the other two gentlemen? Remember, because it's three people appeared. It says at the beginning of verse 18, Abraham looked up and saw 3 men standing nearby. Verse 17, then the Lord said, shall I hide from Abraham what I am about to do? Abraham will surely become a great and powerful nation, and all the 8 nations on earth will be blessed through him. For I have chosen him, so that he will direct his children and his household after him to keep the way of the Lord by doing what is right and just, so that the Lord will bring about for Abraham what he has promised him. So he's picked out Abraham, and he's saying, yeah, he's going to be something great. I've given him this promise. He's going to do this stuff. So should I tell him what I'm going to do? Verse 20, then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin so grievous, that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. This to me is one of the most fascinating verses in the Bible. This is God in the flesh on earth with a man he named Abraham, who used to be called Abram. And he's talking to him and saying, this is what I'm going to do. And then he begins the story as to why he's going to do this. And he says there's a great outcry that he hears about Sodom and Gomorrah. And it's so horrible, the stuff I'm hearing, that I'm going to go down and check it out and see if it's true. God is going to go check it out to see if it's true. Did that sink in? Let me read it again. Verse 20, then the Lord said, the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is so great, and their sin so grievous, that I will go down and see if what they have done is as bad as the outcry that has reached me. If not, I will know. that's something to think about and sleep on tonight. Verse 22. The men turned away and went toward Sodom. But Abraham remained standing before the Lord. So those two other men turned away after God said this. Those two men turned away and walked toward Sodom and Gomorrah. Okay? But Abraham remained standing before the Lord, Yahweh. Verse 23. Then Abraham approached him and said, Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? Okay. Abraham now understands what the Lord is about to do, even though the Lord didn't spell it out. The Lord just said, I've heard some horrible, horrible things, and I'm going to go check it out. And if it's not true, then I'll know. Abraham knows it's true. And now he's afraid for these people. And remember, his nephew, Lot, lives near Sodom. Okay? So verse 22, the men turned away and went toward Sodom, but Abraham remained standing before the Lord. Then Abraham approached him and said, Will you sweep away the righteous with the wicked? What if there are 50 righteous people in the city? Will you really sweep it away and not spare the place for the sake of the 50 righteous people in it? Far be it from you to do such a thing, to kill the righteous with the wicked, treating the righteous and the wicked alike. Far be it from you. Will not the judge of all the earth do right? Oh my gosh. He's talking to God. He's reminding him of the difference of right and wrong. You can't treat the wicked people like you can the good people, can you? You're not going to wipe out an entire city if there's 50 good people in it, will you? And he calls him the judge of all the earth. Verse 26, the Lord said, If I find 50 righteous people in the city of Sodom, I will spare the whole place for their sake. So now because of Abraham's plea, I guess, or maybe the Lord had already decided this, maybe it had nothing to do with Abraham's plea, and he's just saying, of course I wouldn't. Or maybe Abraham talked him into it, but he says, okay. Well, if there's 50 righteous people there, I'll spare the whole city of Sodom. Verse 27, Then Abraham spoke up again, Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, though I am nothing but dust and ashes. So he knows he's being bold, and he knows what he's made from, the dust of the earth. Verse 28, What if the number of the righteous is 5 less than 50? Will you destroy the whole city because of 5 people? So he's not saying, he's making it sound not as bad as what it is. Instead of saying, you're not going to destroy the city because of all those bad people, he's saying, well, if it's only 45 people, would you destroy it because there's 5 people that are wicked instead of being righteous? Well, there's a whole lot more that are being wicked instead of righteous. But he's saying if it's only 45, because that 5-person difference, because of those 5 people, will you destroy the whole city? If I find 45 there, he said, I will not destroy it. Verse 29, Once again he spoke to him, What if only 40 are found there? Abraham knows this is a very bad city. And Abraham didn't think he saved the city with 50 or even 45 righteous. Now he's going for 40. He said, For the sake of 40, I will not do it. Verse 30, Then he said, May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak. What if only 30 can be found there? Abraham's not confident at all that there's 40 righteous people. He answered, I will not do it if I find 30 there. Abraham said, Now that I have been so bold as to speak to the Lord, what if only 20 can be found there? He said, For the sake of 20, I will not destroy it. Then he said, "May the Lord not be angry, but let me speak just once more. What if only 10 can be found there? 10 out of a whole city." He answered, "For the sake of 10, I will not destroy it." When the Lord had finished speaking with Abraham, he left, and Abraham returned home. Okay, Abraham finally felt good when he got the Lord to agree not to destroy the city of Sodom for the sake of 10 righteous people. He's got his brother there, and his brother and nephew, Lot, there, and Lot's family, and he probably figures that there's got to be 10 in there. So he feels much better now, and they part ways. Doesn't say the Lord went up. And we know that the Lord said he was going to find out, go down there and find out. And we know that the 2 men already left, the 2 men that were with the Lord. Wow. So this says a lot in here. And we can get an idea just how bad that city was, that Abraham was that concerned. He knew once the Lord saw that the Lord would destroy it. The Lord didn't even say he would destroy it. He just knew that the Lord would destroy it. And so he begged for their lives and their safety. And he felt confident that there was 10, but he did not feel confident that there was even 20 righteous people in that city. So they parted ways at that point. What I find interesting here is that it does say that Abraham remained standing before the Lord, all capital letters, Yahweh. But when Abraham was talking to him, he did say the judge of all the earth. So he knew who he was talking to. But when he would say, "I've been so bold as to speak to the Lord," that's not all capitals. So to master is what he was saying. Maybe he meant my master or master of all, but he was saying master, not Yahweh, when he was talking to him. Okay, and that is the end of chapter 18. You need to watch chapter 19 or read it yourself to find out what happens.